It's time for Promoter 101, the podcast, hosted by Steiny.
Welcome to Promoter 101, Episode 3.
Dan, it's a busy Friday. Why don't we just jump into some news of the week? Suge Knight's claiming that Dr. Dre hired a hitman to have him killed. Meanwhile, I'm still wishing Jerry Heller wouldn't have stopped Eazy-E from doing it in the first place.
This week marks the 25th anniversary of the passing of the legendary concert promoter Bill Graham. He's the gold standard in our industry, so much so that Polestar literally named the Promoter of the Year award the Bill Graham Award. 25 years later, he's still missed.
Pandora took a beating this week following an earnings call where they announced falling listenership for the second straight quarter. Despite their efforts in announcing their plans for an on-demand streaming service that's supposed to launch this December, they couldn't find off the street. Their stock took a dip of about 10%.
Yeah, that's what we need. Another on-demand listening service.
ICM Partners is promoting 5 of their own this week, including Andrea Johnson's right hand, Julia Sinnerth, and Kevin Jurgensen and Scott Mantel's international department. Congrats to Julia and Kevin.
This week we lost master comedian Kevin Meaney, as well as 50s pop star Bobby V. R.I.T. to both of them. They'll be missed.
Other things going by the wayside. Vine's 6 Seconds is up. Twitter announced it's going to be shutting down the service after buying it a little over 3 years ago for $30 million. This week, we want to take a dive into music business conferences, with so many out there now.
The conference season starts in early September and runs through March.
The regional arts conferences start the cycle first. There's 3 of them, beginning with Western Arts Alliance, or WA as it's known. It's held early September this year in LA. It's followed by Arts Midwest, held this year in Milwaukee last month. And finally, there's PAE, or the Performing Arts Exchange, which is held in Orlando at the beginning of October.
3 conferences are spread out about a week in between each of them. It really focuses on the performing arts centers as they start to think about their programming for next year's seasons. A lot of showcases, panels about how to get grants funding together, dining and schmoozing. It's mostly about the adults in the industry coming together and talk about classical music and the arts.
After that, there's also the Entertainment Buyers Association, which takes place in Nashville. It's mid-October each year.
It's known on the streets as IEVA, but I've deemed it Redneck Polestar. Its focus is the large venues, festivals, and country and classic rock touring. This really has started to come into its own over the past few years as a major conference, and it's the only major conference on the other side of the Mississippi this year. Luke, you went this year. What'd you think of it?
This is my second IEVA, 2 years in a row. I thought it was an incredible event. It's a little less stuffy than some of the other arts conferences you might experience throughout the fall, and it's certainly not as structured or tight as APAP or Polestar or anything like that. It's a really great conference. I totally recommend it to anybody looking for some business. Plus, you get to come to Nashville, eat hot chicken, spend too much money at bar lines. It's a good time.
Great act showcasing. It's one of the only major conferences that you'll see pop act showcasing. All the major agencies have them. You can see Salt and Pepper performing in the middle of the Country Music Hall of Fame.
It's pretty incredible. They take over the 6th floor of the Country Music Hall of Fame. All the agencies come in for about 2 hours at a time, and they rotate in and out while the buyers stick around and watch some amazing acts take the stage for 20 or 30 minutes at a time. It's pretty incredible. Second major conference of the season is coming right up. It's right around the corner. It's the Billboard Touring Conference and Awards, taking place for the first time on the West Coast at the SLS in Beverly Hills this November 9th and 10th.
The conference has taken place the last 10 years in NYC at the Roosevelt Hotel, and many of the East Coasters are not thrilled to see it leave town and come to LA. But the bar hang at Billboard is always epic, and Ray Waddell does a great job programming the sessions. This year's lineup is a tad weak, but I'm going to go anyway, as it tends to be a great place to get some business done.
After Billboard, we have one of the final conferences of the calendar year. It's December 8th through 10th. It's the 26th edition of the Aspen Live Conference in Aspen, Colorado. Dan, you're a big fan of Aspen, right?
Aspen Live is a family. Names like Andy Summers, Jamie Loeb, Jim Louie, Bob Lessetts, Mark Ryder, Sarah Mertz, John Schultz, Jeff White, Jack Ross, Jake Gold. I could go on for days, and apparently I have. The industry becomes family up there, and it really is a great time.
It's known for the great hang, but it's also some next-level discussions, and I guess it's a good time to plug your interview with Jay Marciano of AEG that's going to be happening this year.
Not a bad time to plug it at all, Luke. I've been known from time to time to say that if South by Southwest is high school and Billboard and Polestar are college, Aspen is the grad school of our industry conferences. Nothing 101 about it. A great way to wrap up the year, ski in the morning, do sessions in the afternoon, and great meals from Worldwide Dining. It's an epic hang.
January brings us to APAP. It's the Association of Performing Arts Presenters, held each year in New York. It's like the 3 regional arts conferences we mentioned, wrapped up in one giant shit show.
Every agency is there. Showcasing the trade show floor is on 3 levels at the New York Hilton. It's just massive. A ton of meetings, and the drinking is just next level. It's a giant schmooze fest that lasts a week, and there's nothing like it. And those girls sure can drink.
And the bar faces and names, that's rocking every night into early morning.
And just try to find an open seat at the bar at London.
APAP is definitely worth checking out for anyone in the business.
It's a blast for sure. Great networking, but getting a floor pass can be a bit pricey and very tricky. The trick is to call your friends at the agencies and see if they can make you out to be a manager.
And that leads us into the late January, early February conference each year. That's Polestar Live. This year it's going to be January 31st, held in Los Angeles and downtown at LA Live.
That's, in my opinion, the granddaddy of them all. There's no better hang. The booze and the bullshit flows like water. And the industry legends fill the hotel bars. It's literally the only conference that matters. If you could only afford one, this one is it. Pulsar Live.
I agree. And speaking of Pulsar Live, let's go ahead and announce Promoter 101 will be doing a live podcast taping at Polestar Live this year. Should be a lot of fun to do the podcast, the real live audience. People can come out and ask us questions. Guess our questions in real time and tell us how much we suck at this.
It should be a lot of fun, Luke. Plus, the Polestar Industry Awards are the cherry on top of the conference, and honestly, the only real awards in the industry that matter, as they're nominated by a random committee of nominees that change constantly every year, and the winners are voted on by the actual industry. I just wish they kept the bar open during the awards. You know what I mean, Luke?
Oh, 100%. You got to bring a flask or something. That brings us to the last major conference of the year. This year it's South by Southwest, this March 14th to 18th in Austin, Texas.
This is the industry's version of spring break. At all, discovering new bands, seeing some epic underplays, and mounds of barbecue and washing it down with a massive amount of booze, making some killer schmoozing, and some amazing late night hangs in hotel rooms. It's truly a great time.
All right, Dan. Promoter 101 tweets from the past week. This is where we take an opportunity to go into detail about some of the tweets you made from your account. For those of you not following Dan out there, he's the Jew on Twitter. Let's take a moment here and I'll read the tweets. Dan, why don't you give us a breakdown of what you were thinking when you made these tweets? When agents don't understand why it takes more than a few hours to get avails and offers turned around for them. Hashtag Promoter 101.
Sometimes it takes a little time to get a bunch of venues to respond to hold requests. Research and act in a market, check out the traffic coming around us as well, and then to actually sit down and build the offer. Just give us a minute, guys. We're going to make it happen.
When a venue GM tells you he's not flexible at all, then calls confused when he sees the day confirmed at a competitor's venue. Hashtag Promoter 101.
All right, well, when we place a show in a venue, the managers, agents, and promoters are looking for something that's going to help the act and the fans have the best possible show. When a venue tells you they don't want to help with that process and are unwilling to cut the right deal, they might be surprised to find us down the road at another venue to make that show happen for the fans.
When an agency hounds you for a deposit they already have in their trust account. Hashtag Promoter 101.
This happens every once in a while. It's simply, we sent it, we tracked it, we showed they had it, it already cleared their account. We made a copy of it, sent it back to them, and said, yeah, you have it, cut it out. Happens about once a month.
Hey, man, agents just running down promoter money. It happens, right?
Right.
Very excited about our interview this week, Dan. We're here with the agent for Smash Mouth, Trailer Park Boys, Great Big C from Monterey International. It's Brian Swanson. Dan and I had an opportunity to record with Brian this past weekend, a sold-out Emporium Presents show of the Trailer Park Boys at the world-famous Ryman in Nashville.
We're backstage at the Ryman with Promoter 101. We've got a sold-out show tonight with the Trailer Park Boys, and joining us on the podcast is their agent, Brian Swanson from Monterey International Artists.
Good to be here. Nice to be here. A sold-out show at the Ryman. Incredible.
Congratulations, man. How's the start of the Still Drunk, High, and Unemployed tour going for you and Trailer Park Boys?
Well, as far as I can tell, everybody is still drunk and high, but everybody seems to be employed. So
that's a good thing.
So technically it's a bit of a misnomer, but it still works.
We were wondering, there's a massive line wrapped around the Ryman outside downstairs right now. What do you think the over-under on the number of drinks people have had before they actually enter the Ryman tonight? What's
3.
What are the crowds? 3?
3, maybe 4.
That's a pretty good number.
Tailgating for the Trailer Park Boys is a thing, though, right? I mean, it's almost a hockey match, really, when you come down to it.
I was wondering, though, why people were lined up at 7, because it is a reserved show, so shouldn't they still be drinking?
They're fans of your act, my friend.
That's true. Yeah.
So, a little bit of background. Obviously, you started in the Minneapolis area with Hello Booking.
Yes.
Kevin Daly.
Well, Kevin Daly was even before that. Kevin was Proton Productions, and I worked for him for about 2.5 years, and then I started Hello Booking after that, and did that for 6 years. And,
kind of a tip to Streisand. Hello, darling.
Hello, yes. You know what? It was a name born of lethargy, really. I didn't want to have to say anything but hello when I picked up the phone, so that worked out just fine. It worked out just fine, yeah.
Absolutely. And then you wound up on the other side of the country in Monterey.
I did, yeah, because after I left working for Kevin Daly, he got the call up from Monterey Peninsula artists probably a year and a half after that, and had said, and went out there, and I was doing Hello, and right away after he'd started working there, he was raving about it, how much he loved it, and he's like, dude, if there's ever a job out here, you got to come to Monterey, and I'll kill you if you don't come out and take the interview, which I thought was ridiculous because, they were not going to hire a couple of idiots from Minneapolis. Not that Kevin is an idiot, but to do that twice in a row, I just thought the odds were impossible. And then 6 years after that, they called me, and I hopped on a plane, and it happened pretty quickly. I remember Dan Weiner saying he made the offer, and we worked out the deal, and I said, when do you want me out there? And he's like, tomorrow.
Wow.
Like, well, how about you give me 2 weeks? So I left my wife, Ruth, for a month in Minneapolis to sell the house and shovel the walks and do all that while I lived in Dan Weiner's spare living quarters for a month, looking out at the ocean every morning, and she was shoveling snow, yeah. So,
man, she could not have been happy about that.
She was not happy about that, no. I had to downplay how great the view was and the gig was, yeah.
So you were there for a while, and then the big paradigm deal came where half the company stayed as Monterey, half the company went and became this massive company with the literary behemoth.
Yeah, because Monterey, at some point had then started Monterey International, which was a sister company. They had some shared ownership. But when Paradigm bought Monterey Peninsula Artists, they chose not to buy the Monterey International portion, and so that split off. That became an independent company. And I did another year with Paradigm, but ultimately it was not what I wanted to do. It wasn't, I didn't want to be at a behemoth. I wanted to be at a place where you knew who the owners were and you knew who everybody was, and something that kind of felt like home again, and that wasn't Paradigm anymore. So I decided to leave Paradigm before I'd even talked to anybody at Monterey International. I was going to see what was out there, and it might have been, going back and starting something independent, but it just so happened that they had made an offer at Monterey International to somebody else a week before I asked them if they were looking. And the person they'd made the offer to had passed. And so then it happened very quickly.
Everyone that's been at either Monterey or Paradigm talks a lot about Dan and Fred and working with him. What a special experience was that. When you were out there starting up in Monterey, what was it like working with Dan and Fred? Those are two absolute legends.
Well, those guys are everything that everybody says they are, right? I mean, they are the nicest people in the world, most supportive people. They have always, I think, stayed true to who they were in running that company. I think after a while, though, you do it for so long that it's like, we're not going to do this anymore. We're going to turn it over to somebody else. And they became less involved, of course, because they didn't own it anymore. But everything that people say about those guys is true.
So Chip was obviously a massive, Chip Hooper, who recently just passed, was also handed the baton, so to speak, taking the lead there with Jonathan Levine.
Yeah, and then ultimately Marty Diamond as well, as those guys all, I think, assumed in varying degrees leadership positions within that company. I mean, I was in the car, I remember, with Chip when he was trying to talk Marty into taking little big man over to Paradigm. It was pretty surreal, really. I mean, that the the openness that that conversation was happening as I'm riding along in the car. It's like, oh, I guess this is going down too. So you could see what was happening and the direction that it was going, which was great for the people that wanted to be part of that. But I just saw it spinning into something that was so much bigger than I wanted to be part of, really. You know, I'm still a small town guy.
So you saw the evolution of Monterey into Paradigm and that shift, and then you've kind of took things back and stepped back into Monterey International and your present role here, and kind of a restart, really.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And the nice thing about Monterey International too was what they wanted me to do was to delve more into the performing arts and to help them develop that part of their roster, which was something that I had not done before. So it was a new challenge, something different, getting out of the clubs and the small theater stuff into something bigger. And yet they still let me do what I wanted to do, which was something also that I was feeling more and more restrictions on as the paradigm change was taking place. You know, I at the time I was working on Imagination Movers, which is a kids show, and trying to develop the Trailer Park Boys and get them out on the road and make that happen too. And there couldn't be two artists that are probably further apart on the spectrum than.
And that's part of your roster that's impressive. I mean, you've got Smash Mouth, right, on one side, and then on the other side you've got Jesse Cook, who's a phenomenal flamenco guitarist in the PBS world. So the diversity, I mean, your acts could never tour together.
No.
There could never be a Brian Swanson Palooza.
No. Smash Mouth and Spin Doctors could tour together, but yeah, most of the things are very, very different, and that keeps it interesting for me. You know, there's always something, and there's something new every day. I think it keeps the world of people that I talk to really broad, which I like too. You know, there are too many people to keep track of in some ways, but again, I like it that way. I don't feel like I'm like I painted myself into any particular kind of artistic corner at all. I'm open to anything that comes along.
So when you were out there looking to sign things and acts, there's no particular vertical genre of music that you're looking in. What's piquing your interest? What's getting you excited about things that are out there right now? What are you looking for?
It's what I can't really pin it down. I mean, the last artist that I signed, well, we just signed as a group effort really between me and Chris Palmer and Josh Brinkman and Kate Pagani. We just yesterday signed Flint Eastwood. Who it's a brand new artist out of Detroit, Michigan, and it's more like in that Church's vein almost. But the music is incredible. The stage show is phenomenal, and it's something that we all believe has legs. I mean, that's the thread that ties it all together. Are great performers that I think have a live touring career ahead of them, and in varying degrees. Some like Smash Mouth or Spin Doctors, it's more a matter of maintenance. But the others, they're all in varying degrees and can be developed further and further and further. I mean, we're sitting here tonight, right? Trailer Park Boys at the Ryman, sold out, is incredible.
Amen.
And I mean, and you think about the long game when it comes to that. I first heard about the Trailer Park Boys when it was still Monterey Peninsula artists, and I'd Louis Thomas, their manager. We were working on Great Big Sea at the time, and I just finished telling him about a tour that I did with A Mighty Wind, which was the live version of the Christopher Guest film, and we made that happen just by a well-timed phone call. And
the folk band of Spinal Tap, essentially, coming
back
to life. Well,
it was the Folksmen, who were essentially Spinal Tap, and then the New Main Street Singers, which was Jane Lynch and Parker Posey, and then Eugene Levy and
right?
Catherine O'Hara as Mitch and Mickey, and we had everybody from that film out on the road on like 2 or 3 buses. I still can't believe that we got everybody to actually go and do that. But in telling that story to Louis, he said, "Oh, you should check out the Trailer Park Boys." And he's like, it's kind of like Cheech and Chong, Canadian trailer park. And when I saw that right away, the first 3 seasons, it wasn't even airing on United States television, but I saw it already at that point. I said, if it ever gets on the air here, this is a live tour. This could somehow I don't know what the hell they're going to do on stage, but there's going to be something that they could do.
And then the genius of Netflix made it happen.
Yes, yeah, and then it exploded. And I mean, as you know all too well, Dan, the numbers are phenomenal from market to market, and yet as an industry phenomenon, I don't think they're that well known.
But the fans certainly know who they are, and
Yes.
definitely the venues around the country are clamoring for them as the word has gotten out, and we've slowly, over the course of the last 7 or 8 years, crisscrossed America several times, but limited the supply of dates.
Mm-hmm.
So when they do happen, much in a Tom Waits kind of touring fashion, we're doing 7 dates this year. You're going to have to come to us because maybe we're not coming to you, as the case has been.
Yeah.
And I think that's a function of them taping the new TV show and the new movie for Netflix. So they're constantly taping. They're touring internationally. They're still touring Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So the availability is just not there.
Yeah, it's really tight. Yeah, writing, filming, producing, touring.
And along the side, the guys have to have their family time too. And once in a while, take the kids to Disneyland.
Yeah. Yeah, so it would be great if there were more days in the year that we could do more stuff. But, the upside of that, of course, is that the demand remains high, and we've come nowhere near burning it out. I think there were a couple of times a few years ago when we thought, it's like, all right, so how is it going to go when we come back to Chicago again, 2 years later? Well, apparently, it's awesome still. So,
and that's a sold-out Chicago theater for you guys, right?
Yeah, a couple of times now, right? So, and Dan was there at the very beginning too, when I was out there throwing this around, and nobody, because it was not well known at all in the industry, people that didn't get it, but Dan got it.
Well, it was easy to see. I didn't necessarily understand immediately, but my staff did. A couple of my production guys who have been known to smoke a little pot were big fans, and I'd gotten pitched, and they happened to be in town for another show, and they went off the rails. And you said, come to San Francisco. I did the show at the Palace of Fine Arts, and I was hanging out with you and the chief of police in front of the bus watching everybody pass the joints around, and I was like, are these kids nuts? You're going to arrest them. They're like, this is California. They all have cards. No one's getting arrested. And I got the interaction of the fans with the group and the love there and the respect of the humor for it. But everybody was embracing each other and having fun, and it didn't hurt that the Giants had won that night, Game 6.
Yeah.
So there was a good thing going on. But you could see it right there that we were on to something. And San Francisco is a top 5 market in the U.S., so not necessarily going to have the same luck in Buffalo and in Madison or in Fort Collins, Colorado, but we were definitely having similar experiences in those cities as we wound up ramping it up. And actually, I think that was the moment, was Madison.
Yeah.
It was a game night, and nobody locally wanted to take the show on, and you called and said, we're routing through. It's the only answer. Just do the date. We'll deal with the money at the end of the night. We'll figure it out. Don't even worry about a guarantee. We got to do it.
Yeah.
It's like, if we lose, we'll figure it out. But let's just do it. Show sold out after it was important that the Badgers won, but the show sold out, wall to wall, and then the next day was Polestar Live.
Yeah.
And we were in L.A., and everyone in the lobby from miles around from different markets, like, because everyone had passed on this before you brought it to me in Seattle, like, how did you know? It's like, man, I saw this coming a mile away.
Well, yeah, and you know what? The other thing that I think that has worked well and is a testament to Dan and Jason's involvement with this, and Louis as well, is that and this goes back to, I think, to Dan Weiner and Fred Bolander and Chip Hooper's approach to how they did business too. Is this isn't about, when we've built these shows and figured out what the ticket prices should be, that's really where we have started. It's not about, who's going to pay the most money. We really have done it what some people would say the backwards way, but is really the forward way of doing it, is what should our ticket price be? What's the right room? All right, so given those circumstances, what kind of deal can we structure? And building deals that made sense for everybody. And that has worked time and time and time again.
One of the things we've kind of touched on in a couple other interviews are definitely the relationships between agents and promoters and how important that is to be able to have conversations that are fluid and open like that. How you and Dan have known each other for quite some time now. How much of your history, how much of your relationships get injected into those deal-making conversations? Is it fluid? Is it open? What's it like?
We talk to each other in bed over FaceTime, actually.
Wait,
So before you and me ever started that procedure, because me and Luke actually spent a lot of time talking over FaceTime, and before we ever got there, me and Brian were doing this years ago, routing tours, talking about the problems with shows late at night, usually having nothing to do with the industry within itself.
No.
Just the problems with the industry, but not the deals itself. It was never tonight's show. It was more, what are we going to do with this? This is facing us. Or what are we going to do with that? And we would talk through the world's problems while we were both sipping on a glass of whiskey or six. And, the kids have just gone to bed, and it's killing me.
Yeah, and open and honest discussions, and and I would say that the times when we may have had issues or there's been friction, we've always been able to work through those things too, and those have been very, very seldom that there's ever been like a show that wasn't working right or whatever, and I don't think ever on Trailer Park Boys, but like the Imagination Movers in wherever Reading or somewhere. I remember that one was kind of a hard day, but we got through it all. At the end, everything worked out just fine.
We got through it because I wrote a $40,000 check. But there was a manager involved there, and I think there's some blame to be passed around. And he'll be on the guest. He'll be a guest on the show in a couple weeks, and we'll talk to him about that.
Yeah, I can't wait to tune into that one.
There was certainly. I think if there was blame to be passed around on that particular tour, I would place it on the manager of that show. But and he's also a very good friend of mine, and there's some blame to go around there too, because I don't think that Imagination Movers would have been managed by this particular gentleman had I not vouched for him.
That's true.
So
that's
it comes
true.
back to me being my own worst enemy when referencing my friends to get hired for the job.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we've had some dates. Some markets aren't as strong as others. We've also wound up falling on top of playoff hockey and playoff football and playoff basketball and baseball, which you can't see coming in particular cities. But we have wound up on a pivotal game 6 or 7 at least 4 times on this tour throughout the course of the last 8 years.
Yeah.
And we've had these amazing sales that have gone from like 50 or 60 tickets a day down to 5, 2, 1. It's just like, okay, I get it. And then we'll have the drop count where we sold an amazing amount of tickets, and then we see 75% of the house show up because people are watching the game.
Yeah.
And it catches on. And we had a similar problem with Jesse Cook in Kansas City, where we booked it against a Royals.
Game 4 of something.
Well, no, but we could not have predicted
No,
when we booked this. You book a PBS tour 6 months to a year in advance. So for me to blame Brian for that was a natural instinct as a promoter. It's your fault. You did it. Where's my money?
I tried to blame us all for it until I found out that it was Kansas City's fault, actually, for, I guess, doing well at the sport that they play, which that's baseball, right?
And being the bastard that I am, I literally referenced it this week to get out of another market I didn't want to do for the same artist.
That's true. So, and you should, by the way, you still should be doing Jesse Cook in Kansas City the next time. And I don't understand why you don't want to, but that's okay, because I'm just.
Kansas City that I passed.
No, you passed on Omaha, but I asked you about Kansas City too, and you didn't want to do Kansas City either. But if you want to go on record right now and do Kansas City, now we actually have it here. Let's make sure that this does not get edited.
This is being engineered, right, Timmy?
So good luck with that.
So we'll see you in Kansas City.
I'll chase my loss there. Not during baseball season.
Yeah, no, not during.
Stay away from October in general. You'll be fine,
yeah.
right?
So, but you know what, and that also is like, it's not just Trailer Park Boys. It's Jesse Cook that we work dates on, and we have a long history with Imagination Movers and figuring out, other artists that I work with too. So
let's talk about Smash Mouth. Here's an act that had the hit and then came back because of Shrek. Mm-hmm. So now the kids are playing it over and over again, and the parents are reminded that they love this band, and they have personality. They've been in movies. they get on TMZ in Fort Collins. This band works, right? What's going on with them?
I mean, it's the 90s thing, right? And there are a handful of bands that really ruled the 90s, Smash Mouth being one. So, they like Sugar Ray, Spin Doctors to a certain degree, are sort of soft ticket kings. And we mine that all summer long. Soft ticket
fairs,
festivals, casinos, private dates like crazy,
Yeah.
And so long as we can keep them, I don't think we'll be going back to Fort Collins anytime soon. But give it a few years, maybe. That wasn't our fault.
You were just walking on the sun, right?
Yeah.
Excellent Smash Mouth reference there. That was fantastic.
So, but yeah, they work. The trick has been in finding out because I do think that there's an audience that actually would pay. I think that audience would pay to see them in a venue, but they don't want to go to an Irving Plaza in New York, or they don't want to stand anymore. And so you have to figure out how you do it. And it might be, the city wineries of the world might be the future for that. I think we're going to give that a run.
Did they get a bump in their career from the Disney stuff? Did that bring them back at all? Or?
Oh yeah, for sure, absolutely. I mean,
Guy Fieri stealing the haircut, that helped too.
I don't know if that helped as much.
Yeah. Okay.
But now, if Guy Fieri would play, some Smash Mouth,
Yeah, it would
like
help,
intro, outro music, maybe that would help.
So you have a band and an artist that was around and popular in the 90s, under a pop setting for things, playing in a whole different set of venues that are today, now playing to the same crowd of people, same people, just 20 years later.
Mm-hmm.
How weird is it for those artists to be going from rooms at standing room clubs to city winery experiences? Are they adapting well? What's that experience like?
I think it's a little bit of a trick for them to adjust to that. Really, it's probably not a thrill, because you can still, again, during the summer, you can play to 10,000 people at some festival here or there. They did a couple of 90s festivals over the last couple of years, and the crowds were huge, right? And that is really great. It makes everybody feel good. So then I would think it'd be really hard to go in and play to 300 people at City Winery, even if it's sold out and they paid $60 a head. It's still, right? It's got to be a bit of a drag in some ways while people are eating their calamari and but that is the model that many artists are now having to deal with these days. That's just how it works, and it does work. So
you have a very diverse roster. Is that been part of your success, not to focus on having 17 jam bands or 13 comedy shows, that you've spread it out, you're working with different people and doing different things? You're not competing with yourself or mechanicalizing your own clientele?
I'm flattered that you call it success.
You live in Monterey. You wanted by a bunch of different agencies that you've been continuing able to move up the ladder from agency to agency, and you get to choose where you want to be. But you live in the Bay. That real estate ain't cheap. And you got 2 kids. You got a beautiful wife. I know that ain't cheap.
That is my greatest success, really. I know we're supposed to be talking about the industry here, but the greatest success is that I have an amazing wife, and I have 2 amazing daughters, and I get a lot of time with them. I think I could be further in this business if maybe I did hone in on a certain genre and maybe try to own that a little bit more, but I wouldn't enjoy it. I like the diversity. It keeps me sane, and I probably could be further along in the industry if I traveled more and worked the industry connections and the conventions more, but it's, those are life choices that I've had to make, and I would not change any of them.
You're a great place and a great company to support that kind of work as well, too.
Yeah, and it's a luxury, I think, to be able to have that too, because I don't think that environment exists at a lot of other places.
And it's a great environment. Your office is literally above Prada, right?
The Coach store.
Okay, so it doesn't hurt to get your wife to come down and visit you at work.
Well, yeah, and we're, it's a 5-block walk to the ocean from our office. It's a 10-minute walk from our house to the ocean where we live. So that is, I mean, it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. I mean, we moved from Minnesota, and where it's like 5 months out of the year, right? It really is winter, like 4 or 5 months out of the year.
He has yet to use his snow shovel from Minneapolis, but he has it with him just in case, as a reminder.
We do have it, just you never know. You never know what could happen. But so anyway, yeah, in answer to the question, I mean, maybe things would have been different choosing to develop my own roster differently. But again, it's all, the relationships that I have with all the artists are really good relationships, and with the managers, they're really good relationships. They're people that I like. They're artists that I like, and so that I think is really invaluable for me, at least. It's I've always believed if you work hard and make the right decisions for the artists and the audience, that you will earn a living doing that, and it has proven to be true. And that is simple business science or whatever you want to call it, but it worked.
Can you offer some advice to some of the young fledgling agents trying to come up in the business? What's the path to success that you would recommend, or what are the things that you need to do to shore up your business?
Well, don't expect it to happen overnight. I think a lot of people think that that's what, that it's like, where is mine now? Right? I'm 53 years old, and
You look good.
Yeah, should see me when I have a full night's sleep. I look awesome then. I was up at 3 a.m. to drive to San Jose to catch the flight. So it's been but anyway, don't expect it to happen right away. It takes a long time. This was not what I intended to do as a career, but I ended up doing it, and I just kind of fell forward through it. I always have worked really hard. And you have to do that, and you have to stay honest. I mean, you are only as good as your word, really. You start, lies are hard to keep track of, man. You start telling too many of them, but the truth is easy to remember.
Well, I'll keep track of your lies.
Yeah, you keep track of those for me. I think a lot of it is just that, be nice to people. And again, maybe it won't put you at the top of the heap, but it'll get you to a certain place that is comfortable and good. I mean, God, it's like I never wanted the house in the Hollywood Hills and I don't even know if I was to throw out a expensive car name, I don't know what I would throw out. Dan, what's an expensive car?
Porsche, Lamborghini, Ferrari.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so
I know which one of us is more material, huh?
I've never wanted any of that stuff. Again, I've got what I want. And that is, to be able to say that, even it dawns on me as I say that now, it's like I have what I want. And the things that I want, again, are it's like a job and a family. And
I think my partner Jason Zink measures the world by how good of a whiskey he can afford to drink at the time.
That's not a bad measure.
I figured you might appreciate that.
Yeah, and I'll throw down for a good whiskey.
There's a good place in town here that I think we'll try and sneak off to in a little while and show you what the good whiskeys they have here are. It's pretty impressive. Anyway, Brian, I want to thank you so much for taking time. We kind of caught Brian off guard. We knew he was going to be backstage here at the Ryman, and we kind of suckered into it. We knew he wouldn't be able to say no on a sold-out show to do this for us, but we trapped you, but we appreciate you doing it anyway. Thanks so much.
Thank you, and thanks for the show tonight.
And congratulations to Brian and Trailer Park Boys. Sold-out show tonight at the Ryman. Very much looking forward to it. Thanks for being on here.
Thanks for joining us on Promoter 101. Next week, our guest is the legendary promoter, producer, manager, and agent of acts including Ringo Starr, Mr. Dave Hart.
Very excited about that. You can follow Dan on Twitter at The Jew, and you can follow me at W. Luke Pierce on Twitter.
And you can follow the show at Promoters 101 with the S in the middle there because Promoter 101 was taken for some reason. And of course, you can email us any of your questions at steiny@promoter101.net. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week on Promoter 101.